Welcome to some more stories, tales of transformation inspired by being outdoors. My name is Marianne Rowe. I'm a founding teacher of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio and a psychotherapist. Over the past few years, I've been blessed with meeting a number of extraordinary people who have extraordinary relationships with the outdoors. Whether working as a scientist, educator, artist, researcher, attorney, or environmental activist, each of these individuals engage their heart and spirit, as well as their very intelligent mind in their work. Each has a sense of reverence, compassion, service, and reciprocity, as well as a profound understanding of interbeing, and bring all of these qualities into their relationship with the world outdoors. Each has a story of being transformed by the outdoors and has graciously agreed to share this story with us. Sitting by the campfire with me today to offer some more stories is Laura Lee Lienk. Laura Lee teaches environmental studies and service learning programs at California State University of Monterey Bay. She is dedicated to bringing children, university students, and the general public together in healing the earth and healing human communities in what has become the new environmental and social discipline called civic ecology. She is the director of Return of the Natives Restoration Education Project. For her work in community, Laura Lee was chosen as one of Monterey County's outstanding women and as a CSUMB Presidential Administrator awardee. Welcome, Laura Lee.
Well, Marianne, it's lovely to be here today.
Oh, thank you for joining us to share how your perspective and even your life has been transformed through your relationship with the outdoors. And so, with respect to the original indigenous inhabitants and stewards of the land we live on, we begin our conversation with a land acknowledgement. Whose traditional lands are you on, Laura Lee?
Well, currently I'm on the traditional lands of the Esalen community. And I knew you were going to ask something like this. And so, but what really came to me was that I grew up on the traditional lands of the Seneca Native peoples who were part of the Iroquois Confederacy in the Finger Lakes in upstate New York. And so I think we probably, wherever we grew up and wherever we land, we're on some traditional people's lands.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's when I remember that, I feel something in my heart of yes.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for stewarding and caretaking these lands. Yes. So, Laura Lee, throughout all the aspects of your work in the community and with the university, you have embodied a profound dedication for collaboration, for service, and for reverence for natural ecosystems. Your love of the earth and all of her beings is palpable. And I am curious about the beginning of this profound relationship. So you mentioned you grew up on the land of the Seneca, and I'm curious about what you were curious about as a child and how that curiosity has been part of your relationship with the earth and the universe?
Well, I spent a childhood, you know, a long time ago, but where whenever we came home from school, we'd get in our play clothes and be sent outside, or all summer we spent outside. Every weekend, it was okay, go on outside. And so I lived on the outskirts of town, and we would just go out exploring. And so I had that degree of freedom, but I also had a father who was an entomologist, a scientist.
Ah,
And so we had this ability to go out and explore and find things. And I bringing bugs home and things home, somebody who would share in that excitement. And I think for that, I'm very grateful to have had a mentor. Not only my father, but my mother would go out too, but my dad who would like pick up bugs and do all sorts of things that other parents didn't do. And so I think little as a child, you start looking at things, small things, and partly because you're small. And I so that's it was curious. There's a Gary Paul Nabum writes about how he took his kids to the Grand Canyon, and like, this is the coolest place ever, and they are picking up rocks along the trail, and that's what they did. And I think that is that the immediacy of finding little things and little moving things and puddles and all of that, I was part of my life. But I think for children to have that experience is indeed a gift. And so I think that's where it came from for me. And in retrospect, that was certainly why I embarked on one of the reasons that I embarked on a career in environmental education.
yes.
But it still is this looking at small things as well as things over the course of time. And I have been lucky, off to my right here. So I was gifted a very old microscope. And I have a dissecting microscope right here, where on my walks and explorations, I find little things. And currently I'm looking at the catkins of the alder trees here, which are now blooming. These are the male parts, and I've probably seen them a million times. But then when you have a tool of science, in this case, you're like, oh man, this is totally wonderful. So I think it's looking, as as a child is able to look at small things. I think that's a gift that I was given.
And a gift that you are passing on to children and university students. And I'm just I'm feeling inspired, and my smile is so big as I'm listening to the energy of your discovery and your curiosity, and how even the familiar, if you look closely or look at it in a different way, becomes a whole new world. Whole new world.
And I think that's something that that you have to say, wow, every time that a child or a person has that discovery, and you're around and you go, oh, that's great. What did you see? And let's go a little further on that.
Yes.
Um, and I think it's beyond giving things a name. Though I just realized I just gave these little Alder Catkins things, but
Mhm.
but um, but when you give, it's beyond giving something a name. It's like looking at the descriptive elements of what you've found, and the colors and textures and intricacies of a time, the oak moths that are trying to get into my house every time I open the door at night. Yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, yes. I love that, when we go beyond a name, like I can introduce you as Laura Lee Lienk, but just in these 5 minutes, I've discovered, I've become, I've had the chance to see, there it is,
Right.
had the chance to see and be with aspects of Laura Lee Lienk that I never even knew were there. And so by asking the questions and leaning in and listening, whether it's a human being or a more than human being, there's mysteries and miracles to be revealed.
Indeed. Indeed.
So I'm wondering, my impression from our connection is that choosing your career, um, it was not just choosing a career, that it was answering a calling. And 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 I think you've opened the door to that, but I'm wanting to see a little bit more of was there a transformative experience or a set of circumstances that catalyzed your decision to become an environmental educator and a community magnet.
Wow. I don't know about the magnet part, but I think um, you, as I'm just reflecting on this now, um, service was a big part of my life. Like I was a Girl Scout and church groups, and you did all that all different kinds of things. So service was planted there, and um, and then these transformative elements. When I was well 13, my family was involved in a very horrific automobile accident, and I was one of two people who survived. And for that, it's like, oh man, I have to do something useful to be that survivor type of thing. But then I spent a lot of time in a children's hospital, and I saw children die, and some of the kids that I saw these children die, and I just said, oh man, I want to be a healer. I want to be a doctor. That was like, oh, who are your role models? And so I kind of went into the sciences, like as I did with, following my father type things. And um, and uh, then and then I couldn't get into a class. I couldn't get into comparative anatomy, which you needed for a pre-med, da 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 da. And I ended up in invertebrate biology. And we went out to this was in Virginia, and we went out to the tidal flats and collected worms and did all this marine invertebrate type stuff. And I remember coming home in this university van, and I've got a big bucket of seawater filled with mud, well, seawater and mud and worms and all sorts of stuff in there. And it's, kind of between my legs, and we're jostling around. And I look out the window, and an osprey flies by. And I just said, oh, this is so much better than being in a comparative anatomy lab for me. And at that moment, I said, I really want to spend time in nature. And I didn't know, what are those kinds of careers that you could go in? You think, oh, I'll be a park ranger or whatever. And so career went on, and I was able to get to be in some really great educational places with great mentors. And I started learning the science of the worms and more about insects and bogs and forests and everything. And so somehow it wasn't necessarily a conscious type thing, but I ended up in environmental education. And that's been my career for, let's see, like 45 years. And what it, I came to a realization a couple of years ago that, well, I wasn't an MD, and I'm not there, in a being a pediatrician, and helping little children who otherwise could have died. And but I am healing, and so that kind of it was this come around, that you can that you can heal the earth and heal people, and you have to do them both.
Yeah.
I think I really think that you have to do both things, and you have to be able, as a person in science, to be able to talk to people who are not in science and get them enthused and engaged, and at the same time, the people who are out there in nature are bringing these great observations to people in science who can help give meaning, can give meaning to what they're seeing. I might notice that, oh man, it feels that we're having not enough rain right now. And then the science person will say, yes, we have only had not even 3 inches of rain. So the person, it's like you're putting data and observation together, and that's well, and certainly observation is the first part in science. So science asks wonderful questions, but then to translate it to the general public is the big challenge, and which we've seen in our country lately. Yeah,
absolutely. And that I'm appreciating how you are holding both. There's the science part of it, and there's the meaning part of it, and or the relational piece, which is often where meaning is found. Is, well, what does 3 inches of rain, how, what's the relationship, what's the impact on me and on all the creatures and the beings of the earth? Then it starts to come home. Right. So I wonder if you could put into words, or how you would describe your relationship with the earth.
Well, I'm I think I'm probably ADHD, and so I like to be very active, and so that's hiking and spending lots of time with nature. But going back to that healing part, I ended up going being with Return of the Natives Restoration Education Project for, well, this is the 26th year. And so it's that healing part is very profound for me. And getting people into nature through the actual hands-on processes of doing habitat restoration. And so that and we do that with plants and putting plants in damaged and broken areas, and then helping the plants to survive so that some nature takes its course. But there's this feeling for me about having my hands in the soil, and it's to actually feel that to feel soil is really a something that's like, well, it's very visceral, and it is, it just kind of comes through your hands. And I think that's probably why so many people like plants, but are engaged in gardening, because they're not afraid of getting dirty. And I think that's getting dirty can be a metaphor for so many actions where you actually get to do something. And so for me, it's like getting my hands dirty.
Yes, yes, yes. And you speak of getting dirty as a metaphor for so many things.
Right.
And what comes to mind as you're describing that, for me, it's like being willing to get gritty, be with the grit, to be with the squiggly worms, and to be with the I don't know what's under here when I pick up this rock.
Right.
Of that, but being willing to be present to whatever is there is part of healing.
Right.
Because if we turned away from anything that was uncomfortable or not according to our definition of pretty or whatever, if we turned away from that, then what needs healing, what needs tending, doesn't get met.
Exactly. And so that it's the service. It is, it is real service to the earth.
Yes.
So it's beyond, even a metaphor. But being dirty, is being involved, being with a child who has issues. That can be dirty, and in my other parts of my life, like I'm a CASA, which means a court appointed special advocate with kids in the foster system. And wow, it opened my eyes that there is so much that we can do. And it's getting our hands and our hearts engaged with things that are or situations, not but situations that are damaged or needing or are broken. And so it's not clean. It's like it's dirty in the other word part
Mm-hmm.
of it's not soil, it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Right, right. Yeah. I call it sitting in the grit, you know,
absolutely,
willing to
absolutely.
just sit in the grit, whether it's physical grit or emotional grit or cognitive grit, but to be willing to be present. And I as you keep pointing to be of service, to
Mhm,
be a conduit of healing,
mhm.
being willing to be present, I'm willing to be here, comfortable or uncomfortable, I'm here. Yeah, yeah.
And it's yeah, I'm better skilled with my eyes to see bugs and things like this, and I'm not as skilled um, as a listener.
Mhm,
And so that it's like we can work on these healing skills through
mhm.
you know throughout throughout our lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's our evolution, is
Absolutely.
to more and more of that. I'm appreciating your reference to being a listener, and just taking off from that context of, as you are being with the earth, and the soil, and as you're listening, especially now when there seems to be a lot of communication or or calls for our attention, calls for our hearing. What is it that you hear? What comes to you when you listen to what's happening, and what's showing up with the earth?
Well, I mean, there's at, at this time there's a lot of things that are showing up in a because there's not as much other noise around. I mean, there's
Mm-hmm.
certainly a lot more, you are birds and you start,
Mm-hmm.
you know, listening to the wind and you listen to storms and or hail on the roof or all of that. So that you were I think people notice a lot of this
Mm-hmm.
more. Um, and I think I think that we also can sometimes hear um, um, and see pain of the earth, and there's certainly a lot um, of that around the bird you don't hear, or the frogs you don't hear, or uh, so that those kinds of things that are having a hard time surviving is you know is you start to notice. But one of the things that when I start to think about when I'm out there um, planting plants on a restoration site, I'm not doing it by myself. I'm doing it in community with others. And I just love to hear all this chatter is going on between the humans, and they're sharing about their lives or whatever or they're sharing music that they like or books they've been reading or or that kind of thing. And I think that that's uh, one of the things that I most cherish um, about this restoration work is that it gives people, while their hands are busy and they're massaging plants and putting them in the ground and doing all this, they're also um, slowing down, but they're having these kind of very heartfelt discussions with the person more than 6 feet away, doing similar things. And so that they talk about big issues. And I think a lot of times that they come out with these understandings. And so that one of the things that we do at the end of every event is like, what are you taking away? What are you learning? And and there's some people who that they don't have an answer, but they hear what other people are saying, and it kind of pushes them to it pushes them into their heads more, maybe their heads or their hearts, to come out and to realize that they can say something and think something profound. And if that person had this experience doing what I just did, well, maybe I can too. And so that it's this reciprocity that we have with doing service, is like, we plant plants, we stop erosion, we make help with pollinators, we do all this, but on the other hand, we get this profundity of thinking and feeling, and it doesn't always happen, and they may be thinking something else, but I think it happens frequently. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm imagining, that there's something about being in relationship with the earth, that planting and healing and touching, that touches, consciously or unconsciously, something deep inside that may not get touched that often. I mean, I wonder, I can't even think of an example, but if there was, if it was a group of people working in a car manufacturing plant, I don't know that level of profundity would be touched in the same way. That there's something in that shared experience of connecting and being of service to our planet that perhaps has us remember something that we didn't even know that we had forgotten.
absolutely. Yeah. And and then of course you're frequently in a beautiful spot, and you've got I mean, it's not like you're just it's not like you're just in a factory. You're looking around, and you've got sky, and you've got birds, and oh my gosh, you've got a worm, and and all these things that that are impacting you. And so yeah, it's so that's what keeps me going. I mean, it's beyond as I said before, it's beyond knowing the name of everything, which sometimes helps, knowing the names of things, but and it's beyond for me keeping a life list of the birds that I've seen. That's for me, though I know many super birders who are like the coolest people in the world and have really great lists, and life lists.
Yes, yes, yes. As you were saying, there's being in being outdoors, so being outside of these structures that in some ways cut us off from the trees and the plants. And although I look around the room I'm in and there's trees in terms of furniture and the wood and plants and so the outdoors is inside, but the being outdoors, that there's something that awakens for us. And when we remember that we're part of that whole big environment, that it's not something that's away from us, but that we're actually related. It's our kin. We're out with our kin. Yeah. And so what do you know or feel about the outdoors that you wish everybody, if you could have a wish that everybody knew or felt something about relationship with outdoors, what would that wish be?
That I I wish that people were not afraid of it. That they, there are not, bears trying to eat them or mountain lions trying to stomp on them or anything like that. That that kind of there are things that can hurt you, and you can fall off of cliffs, and you can get poison oak, and you can get there are things, but but not to be afraid, and to slow down. I wish that people would be able to feel comfortable enough to sit on the ground, and that getting your clothes dirty is not the end of the world. But that you can sit down and slow down, and something wonderful will come your way, or will land on you, or or walk up your leg or whatever. I'm talking about little bugs and stuff like that. And that you start seeing things, in a it's you, but all of this is around you, and all of this are the wonderful is the wonders of nature. So I wish people all had these opportunities to go out in nature and to be in nature. And like, I mean, we've got some opportunities right now. For instance, with schools being closed or schools doing outdoor things. I mean, there are out schools that are meeting out in their playgrounds and stuff like that. Or schools meeting on hikes, and we have these opportunities to return to nature and to come up with a new paradigm about where we learn, and where we can be healthy and rounded. And it can be, instead of a garden by a school, it could be a school by a garden. And that kind of, we have these opportunities now. I'm not naive enough to think that we're going to jump to those, but there are some places that are. And I think that so that would be my wish, is that we had more close by opportunities, where we had parks in communities, where we had nature in communities, where we had nature on rooftops, and we had gardens and everything, so that it wasn't just kind of the lucky people, like such as myself, or people, many of the people here on the Monterey Peninsula have pretty easy access to beautiful places in nature. But and for many of us, we feel safe enough to access those. Some people don't feel safe enough, and and so that to give people who don't feel safe other opportunities to perhaps see nature in with safe people, and you know, to in groups that are safe, that are doing things maybe at a different pace, so much of like what your work is. That's that different pace is a little hard if you're dealing with six-year-olds who are doing, you know, they want to go different places and stuff like this, but they're the ones who need the who do need these times in outdoors and in nature. And so I think we have a unique opportunity right now. I'm not sure that we'll get there, but with time, you know, with time.
Yes, and I think that certainly, at least I've heard a number of stories of people sort of discovering the outdoors as a worthwhile place to hang out. You know, now that the and the restaurants and this and that are all closed, where are you going to go? And just go outdoors. And so I think that there are some changes or some awakenings to, oh, this is kind of cool to be out here like this.
Exactly. And that many of, I mean, it's this balance between preserving nature and letting and inviting people in. And you know, you some places say, no, we don't want any mountain bikers. You know, we don't want that. And then but other places say, you get people going out and being outside on their mountain bikes. And if you know, they can be having these experiences, walking their bike up 2 steep a hill or whatever, you know, but at any rate, I think that we have to really examine how we use open space and parks, and to make it more, to make that equitable, so that making nature an equitable entity, it's not not just something for people with means, that parks are there for everybody, and that bird watching can be for everyone, and everything like that.
Yes. That what I'm hearing in that is a sense of balance, you know, of that. It's not that nature is to be used, but when we're in right relationship with nature, that we want to take care of it and be tender with it and conscious of it, and so that it can, so it's treating it like a friend, you know, and a part of ourselves that we value. And so there's the balance part of it, and there's also the diversity part. The healthy ecosystem is a diverse ecosystem, and
absolutely.
You know, when there's exclusivity, then things don't thrive, and things don't evolve in a way that leads to more connection and complexity. It actually gets more and more constrained, and so bringing that forward. So from what you know Laura Lee, and also what you wonder, what you don't know. What are the seeds that you want to plant for the future?
Well, certainly the easiest seed is that that hope, and that there is a future. Um, there is a future for um, the planet, and hopefully, and and we as humans on it. Um, but that it's not all doom and gloom. Nature is and has lots of survival mechanisms, and and so do we as humans. We have great capacity that I don't think is necessarily tapped into as much as it could be. Um, we have we have um, great capacity for humans as generosity and compassion and empathy, and that will get us a long way. And nature has sends out hope all the time. It's sending out
Wow.
lots of seeds, and lots of new little buds and everything like that, so that nature
Mhm.
na- nature has this capacity to heal, and we to heal itself. It's very slow
Mhm.
in healing, and so that's one of the, certainly our work, or my work, is like to speed up the healing.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you wanted two things, like hope being one, and what
Or
was the other?
this
What am I supposed to be finding?
the seeds that you want to plant for the future. So a few minutes
Yeah,
you were talking about outdoor education as
right.
well as
Well, I think, besides the seeds of hope, I think um, the the seed of being an explorer, or and an observer, and to and I guess it's a seed of curiosity, and I think that's
yeah.
something that um, that people in science have, that and and that but all the rest of us can have,
Mhm.
and so that's what be curious, turn over the leaves, and look under the rocks, and notice what's going on, on when you're walking. And if you happen to be following a dog on a leash, what is that dog sniffing at all the time? Because I mean, they have much better senses than do we.
Mhm.
So there's something very interesting, probably. So, but it's this um, curiosity tinged with hope, could
Mhm.
get us into a very you know, into a healthier place, maybe.
Mhm. Mhm. Hmm. I love that you how you just wrote the compound, or you just wrote the prescription for when you were saying a little while back of how you wish that people weren't afraid
Right.
the outdoors, and I think curiosity and hope, that's the antidote for fear,
Hmm.
because if
Hmm.
you're curious and hopeful, you're going to lean in instead of running away or sealing up. That curiosity and hope actually have us open to
Exactly.
to discover. And so Beautiful. Oh, Laura Lee, after I finish here, I'm going to go sit outside in the dirt and let my fingers and toes get wet brown from the rain of
Me too. Me too.
you've inspired me. Oh, so how can people, if people are wanting to learn more about Return of the Natives or some of the other work that you're doing, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can Google Return of the Natives Restoration Education Project. And
Great.
so, you can Google us and we have a website. We also have a fun Instagram. You can, if you know how to follow people on Instagram, we
Uh-huh.
have a Facebook pages and everything like that. So you can, use the social media and you'll find us. And yeah, and we'd love to hear you. We're working a little bit um close, I would say closer to home right now in the COVID things, but we can't
Mhm.
wait to to get out more with even more people. And we have lots and lots and lots of volunteers of all ages and school kids and everybody engaged with us, as well as university students who are um, learning about community-based habitat restoration, and university students who are looking ahead to being entering the teaching field, and knowing that, I mean, they're hopeful, obviously for kids, and they're
Mhm.
also adventurous and curious to taking kids outside. So
Mm, mm. Oh, Laura Lee, I'm feeling such gratitude, gratitude for for your making space. I know that you have a lot of things that are asking for your attention, so I'm very grateful for your making space to come and be a storyteller and sit around the campfire with some more stories. Um, and I'm also feeling deep appreciation for, the work that you're doing in the world in terms of restoring communities of the earth, and restoring and healing communities of human beings by helping them get in touch, remember what it's like to get in touch with the earth. So gratitude and appreciation from my
well,
heart.
my pleasure, Marianne, to have spent this afternoon with you, thinking about big things, and you know, touching each other's. Yeah.
Mhm,
So thank
mhm.
you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thinking about big things and then also little tiny things and how they can be big things. Yes, yes. So I'm going to bring things to a close here. And again, thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
So, some more stories is an offering of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio in service of cultivating a relationship of reverence and reciprocity with the outdoors. This relationship arises as we realize our profound connection with the planet that we live on and the universe of which we are part. For more information about this series, courses, and the community of Monterey Bay Meditation Studio, please go to montereybaymeditation.com or check out our YouTube channel for other recordings and programs in this series. So I'll close today with a quote by Llewellyn Von Lee, just an offering for contemplation as the campfire dies down a little bit. Wait until you feel your story like a dream, like a possibility, and then give it to the earth as an offering. From the campfire, under the night sky. This is Marianne Rowe, wishing you warmth, some more sweetness, and awe.